up. Get ready. It's going to be a very, very intense journey. Begin.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to episode 85 of Frameskip. I am Austin Eller, one of your co-hosts on this fine episode. I'm joined by my three pals in crime, starting off with the coach, Kyle Newman. How's it going, Coach?
What's up, bro?
It's been a while.
It has.
We haven't been on the same show in a while. Yeah.
I know. Real quick, have you seen Yellowstone yet?
Dude, no, but my parents are obsessed with that show. Like, everything in their house is Yellowstone related.
Oh, good Lord, man. That show is like, yeah, I can see how it is. I just started it a couple days ago.
It's like Dallas, but rated R.
Almost, yeah. It is. It does have that feel.
Yeah. They have like Kevin blankets Costner. And like cups and like every piece of everything in their house. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah. They are like obsessed with that show.
I don't mean any disrespect to your parents, but that is just lame as hell. I'm so sorry.
I mean, I would say that, but then I turn around and I see 600 Monster Hunter figures in my living room.
Completely different. It is completely different.
I agree.
Completely. And a cat.
Yeah, and a cat. Well, speaking of cats, we're also joined by the ladies' man, Elijah Steele, who has two cats himself.
I do.
What's up, Elijah?
Nothing too much. How about yourself? Leon's a jerk, and Wash is adorable, and those are my two cats perfectly.
There you go.
He's a cat man.
Those beautiful tones brought to you by George.
The animal still.
What are we even at? Like nickname
I think McCorkle. I think I'm gonna stick with McCorkle because that's what Mac in Mac Jones is short for. It's short for McCorkle.
Are you serious?
Yeah. Doesn't that really just like take a big stock hit?
Yeah.
For him. Yeah.
That's kind of disappointing.
I'm really glad he's going by Mac because he probably would have been drafted in the NFL. And first up, we have McCorkle Jones.
Yeah, that's not a first round name. Sorry, guys.
Well,
that's a punter you take in the 11th. Yeah,
it's a unique name. I mean, that's for sure.
It's a unique name. Yeah, sorry. I want to introduce myself too as number one crime pal.
Because you said number one crime pal.
You said your pals in crime, and I thought that was really cute.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Seth is not here, so I guess he's my pal in justice, and he's going to help me take down all the criminals. Because I'm a double agent in this scenario.
Oh, got it. Find out like this.
So we're coming together today, this group of special people, the four of us, to talk about probably what I would objectively say is potentially the biggest piece of gaming news in the past decade. I don't know. I might be stretching a little too far with that, but I legitimately think this is the biggest piece of gaming news that has happened since I've been podcasting. And that is Microsoft getting ready to acquire Activision Blizzard. Of course, it is not 100% confirmed all the way through. They are attempting to acquire them, but it won't be set in stone for quite a while. But this news dropped this morning.
It sounds like June next year, I guess, is the expected time.
Yeah, we'll get to this kind of detail stuff in a minute here, but Wall Street Journal is reporting that they will close by July 2023 is what they're attempting to do. So, I mean, we all kind of woke up this morning to this news. Today is Tuesday when we're recording this, January 18th. Dropped at about 8 a.m. Eastern time, and Elijah was the one that shared it with us. At least that's how I found it. He shared it in our Frameskip Slack, and I saw it. My jaw kind of just dropped. So,
did you guys think it was fake when you first saw it?
Yes, 100%.
I absolutely did. I'm like, oh, here's another one of those Microsoft is buying insert name here things.
I saw it on Twitter first. I love you guys. I'm really sorry. I don't check Slack first when I wake up.
That's fair.
I saw it on Twitter. I had to double check my calendar to make sure it wasn't April 1st.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was going to ask. And before we get super far into this, I mean, what were your immediate reactions? Like the second you read it, I'm not talking about it's been 12 hours at this point. What did you think the second you saw this news?
The second I saw it, my first thought, like you'd mentioned, was, well, this is a joke. But I should say the second I realized it was real, my reaction was literally, that gif of that character Bubbles from Trailer Park Boys where he's just looking and blinking his eyes like, what?
Yeah.
That was actual footage of me.
Yeah.
It's like, what?
Coach, what did you think when you first found out? Again, not talking about, stewing on it throughout the day, but the second you read it, what was going through your mind?
I was excited because I know that there was going to be a million videos out there on YouTube making funny faces, meltdowns. The world's going to end. I'm scared. What's going to happen to gaming? I couldn't wait for it, man. I couldn't wait. This was like, okay, good. This is going to be comedy hour here pretty soon. So in the next 48 hours, there's going to be a lot of stuff
we're one of those videos now.
We are. This is very meta. You could say we're in the metaverse.
Yeah, but we're not like overreacting and dramatizing this.
But Coach, ¿por qué?
No, I mean, for me, I mean, honestly, I read it and it was just pure shock. I mean, I sat there and I was like, I mean, there's no way this is real. I think that's the thing is like Blizzard for some reason Bethesda, when they announced that acquisition, I wasn't too surprised by that. I mean, it was a huge piece of news and it was shocking still, but this was like on a whole different level. I mean, this was like, oh yeah, America ceased to exist today. Like it's like that level of news to me. It's just something I didn't see coming.
I disagree. I think what was really shocking about the Bethesda thing was that like that filled a hole, right, in Microsoft's like portfolio, like in terms of like RPGs. Like Microsoft is awesome. They do so much so well. They just don't have that arrow in their quiver, right?
You say that, but they do have, they're making Fable. They have Avowed coming from Obsidian.
Yeah.
So they were getting that under their belt to begin with.
They were. That's newish stuff though, right? Because like when the last Fable game was 8 years ago, it seemed like a dead franchise until like that teaser thing came out. Obsidian, granted, yes, they absolutely do. So it seemed a little redundant because they do have Obsidian and Bethesda seem to operate in a lot of similar spaces. But like what really blew my mind was that they acquired Bethesda for $7 billion? And that just seemed like an ungodly amount of money. I just recorded an episode of Shortbox Summary, and Tony Stark says that his Iron Man armor cost him $7 billion. And it's just like, oh, wow, that is like a grotesque amount of money. And then today, they announced purchasing Activision Blizzard for $68 billion. For $68 billion. I did research. You guys, the GDP of Pakistan is $65 billion. The GDP of the Czech Republic is $70.1 billion. So Microsoft, in a cash offer to acquire Activision Blizzard, would be the 42nd highest gross domestic product in the world. Like that's like top 25% of all the countries in the world. That's what they're spending to acquire this publisher. That is absolutely insane.
Yeah. Well, and just to kind of put it into context as far as acquisitions go, the most recent one that came to mind for me, and I did some research as well prior to this, is when Disney purchased Fox 3 years ago. They spent about $71 billion. So that puts into context, a couple billion less, but Activision and Fox, the entirety of Fox, were worth about the same in as far as acquisitions go.
Which blows my mind. I think Fox is so much more valuable than Activision.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff attached to that. Like I heard someone say like Candy Crush.
Yep. Yeah, they own Candy.
And that's over $1 billion. That's worth over $1 billion, right? Property right there. So
in 70 years, it'll pay off for Microsoft.
Let me kind of run you guys through some of the details that we know. And again, at the time of recording this, we are 12 hours removed from the announcement. And so episodes of the show post a few days after recording. And so things might kind of change as we go on, but just know that this is what we're going off of so far. So $68.7 billion is kind of the agreed upon number. There's a little bit of I guess differences as far as journalists go, but that seems to be the most agreed upon number. If approved, this would make Microsoft the world's third largest gaming company by revenue, behind Tencent and Sony, and Nintendo would now be number 4. So this basically puts them in front of Nintendo, which is interesting. I kind of would have figured they were ahead of them prior, but here we are. Kind of an interesting thing. This is all coming at a unique time for Activision and Blizzard. This past year, we had some fun, and I say fun very sarcastically and very unfortunately, content surrounding Activision and Blizzard with misconduct and sexual allegations and harassment claims. Of course, Bobby Kotick, he's the CEO of Activision. He's been there for a long time. There was kind of some discourse about this today, but it sounds like he's probably going to be leaving after the deal closes. He originally came out and said he would be there for wherever ready, but it sounds like he's actually going to be stepping down.
Yeah, man. If you're the CEO of a company that was just acquired for $6 to $8 billion and everyone in the world hates you, yeah, I'd probably retire too. Yeah.
Right.
And the thing is, though, and I don't want to harp on this very long because it's not about that, but he is going to get a severance package.
Oh, yeah.
He's going to leave with so much cash.
And especially with it not going effect until 2023, go through 2022. And what was it I heard today? He made like $150 million this year or in 2021. So yeah, it's not going to be 150 million, but maybe 140. We'll see.
Yeah, can't afford those QA testers in Minnesota. But yeah, this is no problem at all whatsoever. Yeah.
The last thing I'll kind of say about Kotick, and because I do think it's important to kind of know this and hear this specific quote that Phil Spencer had a few months ago. But there was all this discourse about Kotick and how he potentially knew about some of the allegations and even tried to do stuff to cover them up. There's a lawsuit underway now in California trying to kind of figure that out and determine if any of that stuff is accurate and figure out where to go with the company as a whole. But something interesting, this happened in November, that Wall Street Journal report came out about Kotick and his direct involvement potentially. Phil Spencer sent a memo out to employees of Microsoft Xbox saying that they were evaluating all aspects of our relationship with Activision Blizzard, which I just think is a fantastic quote to look back at now, because it's like, well, no, they were actually going to buy them. So
we're evaluating all aspects of our relationship, like evaluating owning them.
Yes.
Think of the importance of Phil Spencer, right? He came in when the Xbox One was it was sputtering on takeoff, right? It was just not running. People were unhappy. And then he quickly, within 6 months, he pulled pulled it off of the Kinect, right? And it was $100 cheaper. So he's done so much for that organization, or for just Xbox alone.
Right. No, absolutely. Yeah, and he's interesting. One thing that kind of popped up today is he has a new title. He's now the CEO of Microsoft Gaming. And he used to be the head of Xbox, was his previous title. Kind of going through some of the previous acquisitions by Microsoft. They're just by value. They're aside from this acquisition, their highest valued acquisition was LinkedIn in 2016. It was $26 billion. Under that was Nuance. It's kind of a healthcare and AI software that they bought last year for $16 billion. And then Skype, $8.5 billion. Directly below that was ZeniMax, of course, being Bethesda at $8.1 million. So,
oh man, but that Skype purchase feels like a waste of money now, right?
Yeah.
At least once a week, I remember Skype exists, and I'm like, oh yeah, and then forget again, like later that day.
It's just funny because like I still say like, oh, you guys want to Skype later? Like it's like a verb. Because like I was like I remember using Skype in college. It was like the greatest thing ever. It was like actual felt like I was in Star Trek or something, Yep. And so I still do it the way parents are like, oh, are you playing Nintendo tonight? It's like it's a PlayStation 2, Mom. God.
That's how we contacted family when we were deployed.
Yeah.
Skype and the early days of Skype and FaceTime.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's how we had people on the, what was it, 100th or 200th episode of Retro Modern Network.
I got some more numbers for you guys.
Yeah.
Coach, you ready?
Go ahead.
Yeah.
The Dallas Cowboys were purchased by Jerry Jones for $140 million. They are
God.
They are now worth $6.5 billion.
You could purchase 10 Cowboys.
It's better than that. The average value of an NFL team is $3.48 billion. That means Microsoft, instead of purchasing Activision, could have owned 2/3 of the league, the entire NFL. Or if they just threw in another $40 billion, what's that between friends? They could have acquired the entire NFL for $111 billion. That's insane. Like, that is absolutely insane. Why are people not freaking out about this? Companies have too much power. We need to do something. God.
Well, that's fascinating, George. I had no idea that was how money worked in the NFL, honestly.
And to think how Microsoft started with Bill Gates just doing some code to run on a computer, right?
Yeah. And it's hard to think he just like stole all of the stuff from Xerox. It's absolutely insane. So Microsoft has had 270 acquisitions since 1987, according to their Wikipedia page. And that does not include stakes it's placed in companies, and also does not take into account dozens of divestitures, like them selling off parts of their company. So this is number 270, their biggest one ever, and it's just insane. Austin, I have a list of licenses and properties that Microsoft now owns. I'm not going to read all of them because there's some like Interstate 76, Geometry Wars. You know, it's just like games that like, okay, like I'm sure some people are really excited. Oh, Singularity. That was one game that came out one time 12 years ago. Like, I'm sure some people care about that stuff, but like, let's be real. There's some heavy hitters. Call of Duty, Candy Crush, Crash Bandicoot, Diablo, Guitar Hero / DJ Hero, Hearthstone, Overwatch, Skylanders, Spyro the Dragon, StarCraft, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, World of Warcraft.
You know, I think that obviously the big thing here is Call of Duty.
Okay.
I think that's obviously the big thing. You know, Warzone is still just immensely popular. Call of Duty games are still year over year typically the highest selling game of the year. You know, you look at $70 billion and think, man, that's nuts. But just knowing the success of Call of Duty and of Candy Crush. Seriously, I mean, we don't think about it much as the people that are the hardcore console PC type gamers, but Candy Crush still makes a lot of money. A lot of money. So, yeah, I mean, those are huge. I just think the hilarious thing to me, honestly, is that we've gone from Spyro and Crash being Activision games now to being technically Microsoft properties when they started off as PlayStation titles. I think that's just a hilarious kind of long-term change on those two franchises parts.
Yeah.
Well, let me get your take, Austin, real quick. Let's say you're in Phil Spencer's shoes. Okay. Now you know that in the next couple of years you're not really going to do anything with Call of Duty, but in 5 years, what would you want to do differently with Call of Duty?
Yeah, honestly, I'm not too sure. You know, I kind of dropped off Call of Duty for a while there. I haven't really played the last probably 4 or 5 years. I don't know. I mean, George, Elijah, you guys may have more to say because I know you've played kind of some of the more recent ones. But I mean, honestly, it seems like they're doing pretty well. Warzone wise, at least, it sounds like they're doing very, very, very well right now. And honestly, I don't know that they need to change anything.
Here's what I was thinking is just I wouldn't change anything because while what the core of what Call of Duty does and how it makes money may not speak to us, it obviously speaks to a ton of people. And even for Black Ops Cold War and Vanguard being like not as popular parts of the series, they were the top 2 selling games of 2021. So like, why should they change anything? Everything's going great. They're making a ton of money, selling a ton of copies, and for what it's worth, people like the games. So
Cold War's multiplayer sucked. Vanguard's multiplayer is awesome. I didn't play a lot of Modern Warfare's multiplayer. Fabio did, co-host of my comic show. He was absolutely in love with that multiplayer for Modern Warfare. He thinks that's like the modern peak, the recent peak. And he says Vanguard is really close, but Modern Warfare still edges it out.
So like, I don't exactly know if I would really make changes because it's going good.
Yeah, I mean, I think the big question, and I'll just go on and do this now. I guess I was going to wait till later, but the big question, obviously, with all this is exclusivity. So you could obviously bring that into the conversation with Call of Duty specifically. And this was a quote from, let's see, this was a quote that Phil Spencer gave Bloomberg today. And he basically just said, this was his quote. He said, "I'll just say to players out there who are playing Activision Blizzard games on Sony's platform, it's not our intent to pull communities away from that platform, and we remain committed to that." So, and there's been a few reports about exclusivity. Obviously, again, we are 12 hours out. I think it's going to be a while before we know the full details. I've seen a few reports, and you guys probably have too, that have said that there's going to be some exclusive content, but maybe not exclusive games.
Yeah, it took a year for them to finally say that Elder Scrolls 6 probably not coming to PlayStation. So we'll get at least a year before we find out that Call of Duty is not coming to PlayStation.
Yeah. So kind of interesting. I don't know that. I just can't see them making Call of Duty Xbox exclusive. I do not think that's going to happen with it being the best-selling game out there. It just doesn't really make sense.
I think it will happen. Because how many people buy consoles for Call of Duty and FIFA? Now, imagine all those people who, the new Call of Duty is only on Xbox. I guess that's the console we're buying. I don't think it's going to happen yet. It's going to be a couple years, partly because there might even be like behind the scenes agreements in place with upcoming games or that, but it's going to happen. It's going to be exclusive. You just paid $70 billion. You're going to get people to buy your consoles or subscribe to your Game Pass and buy games for your console, giving you that gaming money.
Yeah, but also like they bought Activision Blizzard for $70 billion because of the money Activision Blizzard makes, right? They make roughly $2 billion a year, according to half-assed internet research I've done. And their operating costs are about $860 million. So that gives them roughly like $1.5 billion a year in profit, right? That's $1.5 billion a year in profit because they are everywhere. So like if you all of a sudden just become exclusively available, I don't know, man. Like there's been situations where like my grocery store stopped selling certain items. I didn't start going to a new grocery store. Like there's just like some things I'm like, well, I'm not going to change my habit that much.
Yes, but also for those people who decide, oh, you know what? We are going to buy an Xbox this time because of Game Pass having all of the Activision Blizzard games. Or, Xbox has the exclusive Call of Duty. Oh, let's see what other games we can buy on this. It'll be a slope of not just that game, but then you're getting all these people to buy other games on that console, which will be spending more and more money. And the more people that do that, the more money will be spent, and it'll just be growing.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be particularly soon. I think it's going to happen with like silos, right? Where like maybe the zombie mode is only available on Xbox, like something like that. Maybe I doubt like Warzone because it's already free to play. But like all these games, like I honestly think the biggest reason they made this purchase was for PC. Like I think it was the World of Warcraft. I think it was Diablo. I think it was all this stuff that all of a sudden just brings so much more value to PC Game Pass. Console Game Pass, I don't know. Like I see honestly like a lot of redundancies between this and Halo because like the biggest competitor to Call of Duty was Halo, and like Halo came out free to play on Game Pass, and Warzone's already free to play. And so, like, obviously they can double dip because, like, who wouldn't love to double dip? But again, like, there's just so much redundancy that, like, I don't know. I think by doing this, like, they could slightly take over PlayStation. Not like I don't mean like an acquisition, but I'm just saying, like, if you're playing PlayStation, you see a Microsoft like Studios logo on your game, like, I don't know, like that seems like a huge just like swing, like that seems like a really big deal. And so I don't think it'll be the game, but like maybe the campaign is exclusive to Game Pass. Maybe whatever. I don't know. I don't think it's going to be the entirety of the Call of Duty franchise, but I do think some things are going to start being siloed in the next 5 years, probably.
So there are a couple things I think about this that are really, really good. One of them is for everything that is going on inside that company. I have a feeling Xbox is going to not let that stand, which means it'll become a better workplace. The teams that I want to support, because I know they're good people, I'll feel better about supporting now. And hopefully a lot of that like bro frat work culture is gone. That's a great thing.
I think it has already been gone. It just has come out recently what has been happening. I mean, you still have your sick people that work there, right? That get off on that. But I don't think it is, I don't think it's as intense. I mean, we don't know. We don't know anything because we're on the outside looking in. But if it was still like that, when they did their walkout, they would have never come back. They'll be like, I'm out of here.
They haven't yet. They were still walked out as of today. Like, that's why people have been reporting that Warzone is a buggy mess. Because all those people still haven't come back. But another thing that I think will be good, all those studios that they decided, you know what, we're going to have you help with Call of Duty. Like Beanox, Toys for Bob, High Moon Studios. They might not have to do that anymore. They might now have the chance to actually make their own games again.
Oh my God. Awesome. Neversoft. Come back, Neversoft. We miss you.
Yeah. By the way, just quickly, I'm going to read off the list of teams that they acquired through this acquisition, just so that we can kind of wrap up on the facts and continue with that point. But Activision Publishing, obviously they acquired, which is not necessarily a development team, but that's a huge deal as well. They did publish like Sekiro a few years ago, so they've done quite a few things. Blizzard, of course, Beanox, Demonware, Digital Legends, High Moon Studios, Infinity Ward, King, Major League Gaming, Radical Entertainment, Raven Software, Sledgehammer Games, Toys for Bob, Treyarch. So, a lot. Anyway.
Man. Really selfishly, this is a problem for me because you guys know I love trophies. A couple years ago, Activision jumped on the bandwagon, the Marvel bandwagon, and released Marvel Ultimate Alliance 1 and 2 on PlayStation 4 and Xbox. And, man, I was really hoping they'd release X-Men Legends 1 and 2 on PlayStation. Let me get some of those trophies. Never going to happen now. Never, ever in a billion years going to happen now. So that sucks. You listed those teams. November 6, 2014, Microsoft acquires Mojang, famously for $1 billion. October 2nd, 2015, they acquire Havok, the video game engine, the physics engine. On June 11th, 2018, they announced acquiring Ninja Theory, Undead Labs, Compulsion Games, Playground Games. Later in 2018, they got In Exile Entertainment. Also that same day, they announced acquiring Obsidian Entertainment. The next year, 2019, Double Fine Productions. 2020, ZeniMax Media. And today, January 18th, as we record, Activision Blizzard. That's insane. And honestly, it's like kind of terrifying for like the dumbest reason, where like I'm going to speak to a very small group of people right now, mostly Elijah. Elijah, you know when you're drafting in fantasy football and you think you have time to get the players you want, and then all of a sudden someone takes a quarterback?
Yep.
And then you're like, oh crap, someone just took Pat Mahomes already, but like there's still some running backs on the board. And then everyone goes into a buying frenzy, and then they start getting quarterbacks, and then all of a sudden it gets to you, the 8th pick in the draft, and there's like no good quarterbacks left for you to take.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think Sony feels like that right now?
Yes. Now that's one of the reasons I think this is a bad thing. First off, I don't like how Microsoft's whole strategy is, I don't mind, you buy the occasional developer. It happens. It's fine. Microsoft is buying full publishers. And they now have 30 studios under their wing. That's ridiculous when, like, as of 3 years ago, they had, like, 7. These are major third-party publishers that now their future games are being wiped out across the board on anything that's not Xbox or PC. And one thing I'm worried about is if I were Sony, I'd be like, we have to start doing this too before we can't get any. Or like we can't get any games because Microsoft is buying all these studios. and they're buying the big ones.
I'm afraid this is going to be like a Cold War, like arms race at this
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I was about to say.
Same.
Like, I'm really
Right.
concerned that Sony's going to start doing the same thing, and then it's going to get even worse. Like, it is not going to.
I pulled more numbers because everyone loves
please.
numbers.
I
right?
legitimately
Okay.
do. So yeah.
All right. So here's why I think Microsoft, they know what they're doing. They're so much smarter than me. Look at them. They're so much more successful than me. Look at me. I'm in 2 different types of flannel recording a podcast in a negative 10-degree night in Maine. Like, I'm dumb. Don't be like me. That said, I think they might have overpaid for Activision. Because here's some numbers. Ubisoft's valuation, $7.1 billion. EA, $38.5. Take-Two, $18 billion. Nintendo, $60 billion. And you're like, okay, those are like some big sizable numbers. Let's keep going, right? Capcom, $4.8 billion. Sega Sammy, the parent company to Sega, $3.7 billion. Namco Bandai, 16.79. Square Enix, 6.23. So those last 4 I listed, a total of $31.52 billion, which is less than half of Activision Blizzard. What's the one market Microsoft has never been able to penetrate? Japan. They could have owned Japan for less than half of what they spent on Activision Blizzard. Now, obviously, they know what they're doing. They're going to make all their money back, I assume, and just do really well. Because, like I said, they're so much smarter than me. But, man, it again, I hate to bring it back to fantasy football, but it feels like an auction draft. It's like, do you really want Jonathan Taylor for $55? Or do you want Devin Singletary for $8? And, like, playoff Jerick McKinnon for $4? Like that's a better value, you know?
Yep.
God, it's just insane.
But no, like you said, I'm worried it'll become an arms race, and like I can't blame Sony. I can't blame them if Microsoft's going to do this. We have to do what we can to keep going, and I don't like where this is headed. It's a slippery slope.
I don't think Sony's going to do anything.
I don't think they are either.
I don't think they are either. I wouldn't blame them if they did, but I don't think they are, because one of the things that I like, where with what Sony does to get studios, they've either bought port studios that are specifically to help with games, or they've bought studios that they have worked closely with for a while. And Nintendo does the same thing.
Yeah, they didn't own Insomniac when Insomniac was pumping out Sly Cooper stuff, right? Or not Sly, Ratchet and Clank.
Ratchet and Clank. Yeah, no.
No, they didn't buy them until, 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Housemarque, Housemarque has made one multi-platform game in the past 20 years. The rest have all been
Outland,
PlayStation
maybe,
exclusives.
yeah.
So that is a team they have worked closely with. Nintendo bought Mercury Steam, a studio they have worked closely with. Microsoft just decided, we can't make them ourselves, so let's get we'll buy the people that can.
It's like the Yankees. Like, it's like how they always go over the luxury tax. That's why people hate the Yankees. Everyone loved the Warriors when it was like Clay and Steph and Iggy and Dre. Like, when it was like people they like drafted, or like a couple, like I think Dre was on someone else, but he was like a free agent signing. But he was just like the one free agent signing, And then all of a sudden, like, when did everyone hate the Warriors? When they signed Kevin Durant because the cap went up. Like, that's when everyone turned, where it's just like, oh, you're just assembling another super team. Whereas before it was like a homegrown thing, which I think is exactly how everyone feels about like this Microsoft situation, where like they didn't just like buy themselves a seat at the table with all these acquisitions. They just bought the goddamn restaurant that the table's in. Like, that's the problem. I think that's like the negative response. And like, I don't care. I like trophies more than achievements. That's pretty much it. That's like my really big like defining grace when it comes to games. I think I might even like a lot of Microsoft titles more than PlayStation titles at this point. Like, I don't know. So I've got no real dog in this fight, except I like trophies more than Chivas. But like, man, it is just corporate consolidation scares me. It annoys me. And I think it just makes things so much less interesting. Like, I didn't want Disney to buy Marvel. I didn't want Disney to buy Star Wars. I think it's so much more interesting to have Disney, Marvel, and Star Wars, and to have 3 things that are actually the same thing. Like, I think the world is much more interesting, much cooler. And there's just way more opportunities to do cool things when it's not like in one entity's corporate interest. And that's like the mandate that goes through the entire company. Like, I think that's gross. And again, $68 billion in change. That is so much money. That is so gross an amount of money. It's unfathomable. It's insane. It's absolutely insane. And also, it was a waste of money. They should have bought Sega. They should have bought Capcom. They should have bought Square Enix.
I think for me, at the end of the day, doesn't matter because we're still going to have a boatload of games to play.
Yeah.
We're going to have too many games that we have time for, except for Elijah, right? What are you? What number are you 52. On?
3. I'm on 3.
Okay,
Ooh, that's
good.
Awesome,
we are on
though.
week 3, so that's good.
I'm doing 1 a week.
But here's the thing with you got to remember, like, I get it. You think of Microsoft as this corporate, just, buying everything. What has Phil Spencer done this whole time? He's trying to get the games out to everybody, right? That's why they started the Game Pass. So we don't know what they have in store in the future in the next 5 to 10 years, so that everybody's going to have a chance to play these games, whether it's on an Xbox console, on a PC, on your laptop. They're going to make sure everybody has a chance to play these games, right? They're in the business to make money. So they want as many people as possible to play these games. And
that's one thing where it's nice that between either of the companies buying these studios that Xbox did, is because now if someone wants, they can buy a PS5 and subscribe to Game Pass, because in time, I'm sure there will be like Game Pass apps on TVs, so you can get both worlds.
That's what I was thinking earlier today too.
I think that's one of the reasons where this big acquisition comes in also is, and that's another reason why I think Call of Duty is going to go exclusive, because then it's, even if they don't buy an Xbox console, well, they now have a Game Pass subscriber for life for someone who only plays Call of Duty.
Yeah. Well, I think it's interesting. You had mentioned this earlier, Elijah, about them, potentially doing these games exclusive to Xbox to try and sell the systems. I was thinking of it more, and you guys just kind of touched on it, but I was thinking it more so that they're not really focused on selling systems. I think they're focused on selling Game Pass specifically, and xCloud and cloud streaming. I think this is kind of a move that they're, and again, this is just my opinion, but I think they're trying to set themselves up for success when it comes to streaming in the future. Because if you have all these companies, you get all these games on, this $20 a month service that anybody can play on their smart TV or smartphone or whatever it is. I think that's what they're really going for here. I don't think it's to sell systems. Again, I do think it's possible they're going to take these games exclusive. I'm not positive on that, though. I'm not quite fully convinced that everything's going to be exclusive. It'll be just kind of a wait and see, though.
Here's something to think of as well. A copy of Call of Duty, we'll say it's $60. I know like the next gen version is 70 or whatever. We'll say 60. Imagine somebody subscribes to Game Pass Ultimate for a year. That's $180. Now imagine that is one of those people that got Game Pass to play Call of Duty. So now for a year, for people that play it like hardcore, they just paid 3 times how much the game was.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's a good point. That is a good point.
And they don't see it up front because they just see it as, oh, it's $15 for the month. And, there are other stuff there I can try if I want, and then never do. I've had Game Pass Ultimate for a while, and I've used it for 2 games in the past 6 months.
Yeah, I basically just pay a year-long subscription to Netflix, so I don't have to find my Seinfeld DVDs at this point. That's what it is, right? It's the convenience of this thing.
Yep.
And there's a way to mitigate this thing. And I bought those Seinfeld DVDs 7 years ago. Watched them exactly twice before I discovered Seinfeld was on Hulu, and I was already paying for Hulu. So I was like, this is awesome. And I've already got Netflix, and now they're on Netflix. And now it's pretty much all I watch on Netflix. Like when I'm trying to fall asleep, I'll just throw on Seinfeld.
Isn't that awesome?
Okay. Yeah, it's awesome, but it's also like, man, I own these DVDs. This is all I watch on Netflix. Why do I pay for Netflix? But I'm not going to cancel because I'm a little piece of crap. I'm a little sad boy, and I'm not going to do anything about it.
That's exactly why, when I get The Office, I'm not going to get the DVDs. I'm going to get them on Vudu. That way I can just watch them wherever I'm at, like on my computer, on the TV downstairs, on my phone, whatever. I can watch them whenever, wherever, and I'm not like paying for that service to watch them. I just have them.
Yeah, that's what we did. We have it on Vudu as well. So we do not have a Peacock subscription.
Peacock's good though. I will say this: Peacock has a lot of good stuff.
Yeah,
Peacock is good because I got it just so I could watch the Tour de France this summer. And when I saw what they have and what they've been adding on to it, there's a lot of good stuff. Like I just found, I know we're off topic, but old school Miami Vice, man. Old school Miami Vice.
Hey, Coach, if you want, I have like 4 copies of the like 2004 Miami Vice film on HD DVD right out there.
Good. I'm good.
I thought you were gonna send me one of those, bud.
I do need to still, yeah.
I love Michael. I love Michael Mann.
Do you want a copy of 300 also? I think I have a couple of them.
Kind
I know I have at least one, but yeah, I'll take a look.
Yeah, I'm gonna sub back for Peacock because I want to watch every possible Winter Olympic event that I can. But no, yeah, it's just frustrating. We're like, it's getting to the point where I think, like I mentioned earlier, corporate consolidation scares me. I think it's like genuinely terrifying because it's like, oh, Apple, like what a success story. It's like, yeah, they're also like $1 trillion company. Like that's disgusting. Like it's gross how much money these people make. And like on one hand, it's like, oh, well, they earned it. It's like, yeah, I guess they earned it, you know. But it doesn't make it any less gross when you hear numbers like this. And I'm sitting there at the grocery store. I'm like, oh crap, milk is $5.68 a gallon. Like that's a lot of money. But at least Apple is worth $1 trillion. Like what is that? Like I don't care. That doesn't do anything for me, you know. And it's just like, oh man, can't find any green onions in stock anywhere, and because they're so pricey this time of year, and they just sell out immediately. But at least Microsoft spent $68 billion acquiring Activision. Like it's just like one of those things where it's like such like an abstract problem. I like barely know how to process it.
And I think I saw a thing that like the price that they paid for Activision Blizzard would solve U.S. hunger for like 2 or 3 years.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Well, this is a good transition point because the last thing I wanted to ask, the last kind of specific question I wanted to ask you guys, and I'm certainly not a lawyer or like legal analyst, so I don't have like a great answer for this question, but do you think this will get past antitrust laws? Do you think that this will be approved?
Yes. So here's the one thing, and I can't even say I looked it up. I heard somebody talk about it in a podcast earlier. You know, Activision Blizzard, huge in that. But also, George started mentioning all these other publishers. So, like, it's not like this puts that major of a dent into the industry. I'd say it more indicates a potential future and that slippery slope I mentioned more than its effect right now. It's showing the possible effects in the future and a pattern. So I think this will go past easily.
Yeah. No, I think you're 100% right. And again, one of those statistics I had mentioned earlier was that this would still put them behind Tencent and Sony as far as market revenue goes. And so that to me is like, well, yeah, this is a major acquisition, but like there's still, like you said, Elijah, I think there's some stuff in the works for the future that is more hazardous than this specific acquisition right now in 2022.
And also to be on the record, we are pretty consistent in our feelings about this. Like we said the same thing when Tencent started acquiring all these companies, or like acquiring like large stakes in all these companies. We're now on the record of saying that like Disney having Star Wars and Marvel is like questionable at best. Then you add in Fox and it's just like even more questionable, if not just like outright wrong to own all these properties. Like we're very consistent in that like we don't think anyone should have this much power except Coach. I think Coach is cool.
Yeah, I mean, we just did that episode a few weeks ago about Embracer Group buying Dark Horse, and I mean, I think that whole episode was kind of, not to be fair, kind of a rehash of what we've talked about tonight. Just we have a pointed objective with this one again is, you know, we were talking about just how concerning it is to see corporate consolidation on this scale. I think it's just going to be interesting to see what happens. You know, I'm still shocked. Like, I've been thinking about it the whole day. I haven't stopped thinking about it, just how nuts this is, and that it's real.
The thing
But
that
here we are.
scares me the most is, all day I've been seeing jokes of, on Twitter people do polls. Who do you think Xbox should buy next? And the fact is that, like, it scares me that there is more possibility of that than ever before, because before it was just, oh, they bought Bethesda, that's crazy. Haha, they're not going to do that again. Oh, they are. And now it's like, who do you think will buy next? I'm like, I'm scared at how much it could be any of these.
Dallas Cowboys. Buy the Dallas Cowboys. Remove Jerry Jones from the decision-making process.
Nintendo owned, what was it, the Mariners or something? They owned some.
Yeah, they had a
baseball
stake in the Seattle
Oh, yeah.
Mariners.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So you never know.
That was so cool. That was so cool. Seeing the Nintendo logo right behind the batter's box. That was awesome.
The reason why I'm not scared or concerned or anything like that, because that's high level. We're going to still be able to play the games that we always been playing. Nothing's going to change on our end. The only thing that maybe changes, maybe we'll play on we have both systems, so we're all good, right? So in the end, the people that want to play Call of Duty are going to play Call of Duty. The people that want to play FIFA, they're going to play FIFA. I mean, like, it's above our heads, and it's a whole different stratosphere what's going on,
Yeah, it's just, again, like, it is kind of concerning. And I think what's, like, really concerning is, like, this is now, like, one fewer thing for someone to publish, or sorry, for someone to purchase, where, like, it really is getting to the point where it's like, you're going to be owned. I'm speaking, like, hyperbolically, of course, but, like, you're going to be owned by Microsoft, you're going to be owned by Sony, you're going to be owned by Nintendo, or you're just not going to matter as much, and, like, obviously there's going to be, like, big breakthrough indie games like Loop Hero and Inscription, and, like, those are going to still come out because humans are too creative to not create something that pushes through every possible obstacle that billion-dollar corporations can push out. But it's just weird to me, man. Like, it's weird that Activision Blizzard is now a Microsoft property. Like, I'm struggling to think. The closest I've ever felt to this was, like, you remember the day you woke up and you found out about Kind of Funny? Like, Greg, Colin, Tim, and Nick announced that they were leaving IGN, and that it was just like, oh, all of a sudden, like, they're just not IGN anymore. And those guys were, like, the identity of IGN for, like, the year and a half plus before that announcement, where it just, like, you wake up and you're just like, oh, this was, like, a seismic paradigm shift in the way my daily life operates. And I'm sure this will be less of a shift than that was, where it's just like, oh, IGN became so much less valuable to me as soon as they left, But, like, it just feels like that, where it's just like, oh, like, things are just not going to be the same. And that's, Coach, you're 100% right. That's not necessarily a bad thing at all. Like, we have no reason to think it's going to be a bad thing. Optically, I think we're used to just assuming the worst, especially given the past 2 years living in a pandemic where it's just like we just in disbelief that things could ever possibly improve. I don't know how you guys feel. That's kind of how I feel personally, where you're shocked when there's anything even remotely good happening, and just a little numb to just everything terrible happening. Like, oh, Omicron hasn't even hit its peak yet. It's like, how is that possible? Because I've been hearing about it for 2 months now. But whatever, it's fine. I'll wake up tomorrow, maybe. And it's just like, at this point, it's like, what's going to happen next? Like, what's going to be the next shocking thing that happens? Because, like, I was already shocked they bought Bethesda. That still blows my mind.
Yeah.
And again, it's just like having all these, like, independent artists out there, and then all of a sudden, like, you can't enjoy them unless you subscribe to, like, a certain thing. And I have the Series X, so, like, this doesn't affect me. But, like, it's just weird to me to see this. Like, again, like, it's just, I don't want to see the Disney logo before I watch Star Wars. Like, it's just, things were, I feel like, better when, again, and, like, more interesting. Things were better and more interesting when it just wasn't an issue. When it was just, like, all these cool independent things were existing simultaneously. And that's, like, the shock that I need to process to get over, like, information like this. Again, it doesn't affect me. I shouldn't care, but it's just the corporate consolidation is what blows my mind. And That's what I find terrifying.
Right. Well, that's the thing. I mean, we all have Xbox systems, we all have PlayStation systems, and even me, I mean, I'm having this whole conversation with you guys. I honestly, I don't remember the last time I bought an Activision or Blizzard game. Like, it's just, I don't. Again, I mentioned at the start of the show, I haven't bought a Call of Duty game since Infinite Warfare. So, it just doesn't. Yeah. It doesn't really affect me, but it still is concerning. But because you're right, George, I think we always do assume the worst. And again, like you said, I don't have a reason to necessarily expect the worst. I mean, I think they've done pretty well with Bethesda so far. I don't really have any complaints. So we'll just see what happens. I think that's kind of my approach, is a wait and see before doom and gloom. But Coach, you were about to say something. What were you
so I mean, just think about what they're doing with Bethesda. They haven't made any real major changes, right? Starfield comes out, right, this year?
Supposedly.
Is that the name of the movie? Or the movie, the game?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's multi-plat, right? It's not just on Xbox, is
exclusive to Xbox.
It is?
Yep.
Okay. Well.
And that's like the closest equivalent I can think of is like, let's say like a new Kick-Ass movie is coming out, right? And you're like, oh, I'm really excited to see that movie. I'm going to go to my local theater to see that. And then they announce like, no, this movie's only showing in IMAX. And like, that's great. That's fine if you live in like a city and you have access to an IMAX theater. I live on an island off the coast of Maine. The nearest IMAX theater for me is Boston. That's 5 hours away. I'm not driving 5 hours to see a movie, And like, I guess it's just like that feeling where it's like, nothing, you didn't do anything wrong personally. You did absolutely nothing wrong. If you're a kid and you say you want a PlayStation before you say you want an Xbox, and your parents are in the position to get you a PlayStation, like, you didn't do anything wrong. But all of a sudden there's just like a lack of access to this one thing, and you didn't do anything wrong, and that's like such a dramatized version of a problem, like that's barely a problem, if at all. But it's just such,
more than anything.
Yeah, it's just such a weird situation that just like didn't exist yesterday. Like, I guess it's like that shock, where it's like the complete lack of access to this material that has been available for your entire life is just gone when it was there yesterday. And you're like, what has fundamentally changed in the last 24 hours? Because I didn't do anything. I guess I think I'm trying to process like bigger feelings on, I guess, like capitalism, and I'm just using this as like a microcosm. So I'm really sorry for putting listeners through this episode. That sounds like a lot for you to process, because it's definitely a lot for me to process. But it's just coming to grips with like how small you are compared to like a corporation is just like, it's such a humbling, weird experience.
Well, the one thing I will ask, and this is just kind of a more philosophical question, I guess, and then we can wrap it up there. Elijah, you touched on it earlier. I mean, I think the reality is they're going to keep buying. They're going to keep buying publishers and developers.
I don't know. When you make a big purchase, don't you like hold off for a couple of weeks? Like, I just bought a $90 comic on eBay. I'm like, George, you got to pump the brakes a little bit, Mike.
I would say that, George, but like you said, you gave us that rundown of the amount of studios they've purchased in the past 5 years, and I don't know. I mean, I could see them buying something else in a year or couple years, 3 years.
It's just weird. Like, does Sony have to respond? Because like, we're sitting here and we're talking about these two companies like they are at war, and in my head I'm like, Sony's gonna buy Square Enix now. Sony's just gonna like do something like this. I'm like, why would they possibly do that? And the only reason I can come up with is so Microsoft doesn't, which seems like a pretty valid reason right now, to be completely honest. They have no other reason. Square Enix, Capcom, Sega, it doesn't matter. They don't need to buy them. Except now Microsoft might. That's it's such a perfect reason to do it.
That's what's scary. There's no need to do it, but if they were to, I would understand. Because it's a matter of, if we don't, they could. And it doesn't need to be that way, but it is.
I don't need to buy a turkey November 2nd, but they might be sold out when I'm actually ready to buy a turkey. So I'm just going to buy a turkey a month in advance before Thanksgiving, because I don't want to be that guy caught with his pants down or unable to get a turkey, or toilet paper. Holy crap. Thank you. Making it relevant to the pandemic. Good God. Thank you. That is so much better than my stupid turkey analogy, where it's just you buy it because, oh my God, someone else is going to buy it. And then all of a sudden it's like, this is why we have a GD shortage of toilet paper. It's because every kid like you is thinking exactly like you. And it's just such a stupid problem to have. God. I'm all fired up. Sorry, I had a glass of Cab Sav.
Elijah. Now, let's flip the roles. Let's say Sony bought everything Microsoft did. Would you be singing a different tune? Would
Nope.
you be like, yeah, this is awesome? And
No, because it isn't about which company did it. It's about the fact that it's happening.
I'm just checking, that's all.
Yeah, no, it isn't about like I don't like Austin said, I don't care about like any Activision games. I haven't played Call of Duty in a while. It's like these games don't interest me, so it's not like, yeah, we have these or anything. No, it's the fact that it's happening. It's the fact that these games should remain. They've been playable to everybody for so long, but now they're not going to be.
Well, we
That's
don't
like-
know that yet. We don't know that yet.
No, we don't know that yet. And they said the same thing about Bethesda, and so far every Bethesda game that's been announced is Xbox exclusive.
Yeah. Why wouldn't it be? They own it. Why wouldn't they do that?
Exactly. And that's why I'm upset at Microsoft's buying decisions over Sony's or Nintendo's, because Sony's and Nintendo's have been, these studios have worked with us. Microsoft's has been, can't make this stuff, so we'll buy everybody who does. And it's taking them from the other, like, these people have made games for everybody, and now all of a sudden it looks like they're going to be made for one group of people. And now the other two groups of people, because don't forget, Blizzard games come out on Switch as well.
Yeah, but people don't buy that. Like, yeah, I know they have, but you know, World of Warcraft is going to stay on PC, right? It might go to the Series X, but it's going to stay on PC. Overwatch is still going to stay on PC. All these games that Blizzard has, they're rooted in PC. They're not moving. They're still going to be there.
Oh yeah,
So
no,
people-
they're staying on PC.
right.
But again, this is bigger stuff for consoles and not PC, because everything Xbox is going to be PC anyhow, which is right where those games have always been. So there's literally no change there. This is all in every aspect for a console.
Right. The only
Yeah,
one I'm
nothing
really
PC is changing.
that I'm interested in is what are they going to do with Call of Duty? That's the one that I want to see.
Yeah.
What hand is Microsoft going to play on this one? But again, I think with that they want as many people playing it as possible. So we'll see.
Yeah, I'm torn. I could see it either way. I could see a reason for either way, I should say.
For me, the only thing is just like there's a free to play version of Call of Duty. You know, like there's Warzone, which is trying to get out to as many people as possible. And so like that's like the one thing where I'm like, it doesn't make sense. Like the numbers of Activision Blizzard's profitability only add up to what they are because they're available on PC, because they're available on Xbox, because they're available on PlayStation, and to a limited extent on Switch. So all of a sudden, if you do this, that cuts your bottom line, right? Like that just immediately cuts your profit, right? Especially like when you consider how much did the PlayStation 4 outsell Xbox One, right? So like how many people were buying Call of Duty on PlayStation versus Xbox? Like there was probably like a better ratio where they were selling, like each Xbox was probably closer to like one Call of Duty sold, you know what I mean? Like attach rate. Where like it's probably like looks better there, but like that I don't know if that makes up for the volume of PlayStation. You know what I mean? Like and so it's like, are they really just going to cut that money like just to spite Sony? Essentially, right? And I'm like, I don't think they will. Like that doesn't, like statistically that doesn't make sense. Numbers wise, financially that doesn't make sense. But then it's also like doesn't make sense this year. But man, give a year, give 2 years, maybe it does make sense.
And where were you guys? Okay, put your thinking caps on. Where were you guys when Nintendo bought, or when Microsoft bought Rare from Nintendo? Remember that? That was huge.
I wasn't paying as close attention to like the games industry. So like at the time I didn't even know. Like I didn't really know who Rare was or anything like that. It wasn't until later that I started learning who the studios were and such.
Coach, I was in first grade. I was in a first grade class.
I was 12. That was 2002. I was 12.
Oh yeah, I was totally 12 too then. I had no yeah. I was 12.
I was 31.
I could barely pronounce some of the game names.
I just wanted to kiss a girl, man. I didn't care about Rare. I didn't care. I just wanted to kiss someone.
Well, you know what I care about is the Frameskip podcast, which you are listening to. So thank you for listening to this wonderful episode. Of course, you can find us all online on the interwebs, except for Coach. He's not online. He's shaking his head no. He's shaking his head yes. Now he's shaking his head no. Elijah is at Loco Lizard Man on Twitter. He's also on Twitch at Loco Lizard Man. You can find him there. He streams very frequently, so go check him out there. George is on Twitter at PurpleBird616. That's also his Twitter account for his other comic book podcast called Shortbox Summary.
Oh my
George,
God, please listen. You guys are appearing on an episode so soon. I got Elijah,
Correct.
I got Austin. We're talking about Young Avengers. Super exciting. You love the story. I'm writing the script so we can talk about issues 7 through 12 and the special. Are you guys reading it?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, I can't wait.
So George, go find your show. Go find George's show on all the same podcast feeds you can find us on. Just search Shortbox Summary. I am on Twitter at Austin J. Eller, and then Seth is on Twitter at Seth the 90s Kid. Of course, you can also follow Frameskip on Twitter at FrameskippPod. We're also on Instagram at FrameskippPod and then Facebook.com/FrameskippPod. If you want to send us in some questions for the show, you can do so on any of those social media platforms, or you can find our question form at bit.ly/FrameskipQ. So go there and submit our questions. That's also in the description box down below in this episode. So thank you all for listening. I hope you enjoyed this discussion on Activision and Blizzard and Microsoft and Tifa, and we'll see you next time. I legitimately think this is the biggest piece of gaming news that has happened since I've been podcasting, and that is
Elijah. Wait, hold on, Elijah. Tell us what it is.
Tell us what it is, Elijah.
Microsoft buys Activision Blizzard for 68 points.
No, that's the second news of the day.
I don't know what you want from me. Yeah, the Tifa Lockhart porn that was shown to the Italian Senate.
All right, well, this didn't go over very well.
Yeah.
Insert sad trombone.
Let's roll it back.